Hi, this next video is about using the law of sines, which is an equation or a relationship that we can use when we have non-right triangles. So using the law of sines, find each measurement indicated. If necessary, round your final answers to the nearest tenth. And so in this scenario, it's asking us to find side length AC in our diagram. Now, the naming system that mathematicians use is we have angles A, C, and B, which are represented with capital letters. And so our naming system, if we have angle A, the side opposite of that is represented with a lowercase a. We have angle B, the side across from that is represented by little b, and angle C is a capital letter C, and so the side across from that is a lowercase c. And so when it says find the length of AC, we're actually trying to find the length of little b. And so the law of sines is an extended ratio, sine of angle A over A, sine of angle B over B, sine of angle C over little c. And so in this scenario, when we use the law of sines, we always use an angle side pair that is across from one another. And so because we're looking for little b, we need to use the angle and side pair that are across from one another. And so x and angle 54. The other angle side pair that we know both the values for is we know 89 degrees, and the side across from that has a length of 10. And so we're going to use angle C and side C, angle B and side B. And so we don't even need to worry about angle A or side A. So if we substitute into our equation, we have the sine, and then angle B is 54 degrees, and that's divided by the side across from that little b is unknown, so that is x. And then sine of angle C over side C, well, angle C is 89 degrees, so the sine of 89 divided by, and then side C is 10. So now we have a proportion, and in order to solve a proportion, we can cross multiply. So we're going to have x times the sine of 89, and cross multiplying the other way, we would have 10 times the sine of 54. Now, again, we're trying to find the value of x in our equation. And so in order to get x by itself, we have x times the sine of 89. So to undo multiplication, we need to use division. So we're going to divide by the sine of 89. And whatever we do to one side, we're going to do to the other. So multiplying and dividing undo one another. And so we have x equals 10 times the sine of 54 divided by the sine of 89. And so now that x is by itself, we can use our calculator to calculate those measures. And so if we type in 10 and then times the sine of 54, one mistake with our calculator is we need to close the parentheses of our original first sine function. And then we can divide by the sine of 89, close parentheses. And if we evaluate, and this scenario asks us to round our final answers to the nearest tenth, 8.09 causes that tenth to round to 8.1. So in our for our answer in this scenario, x turned out to be 8.1, and so the length of AC was 8.1 units long. In our second example, we're being asked to find the measure of angle A. And so because that's what we're looking for, we need to use that opposite angle side pair. So X, or angle A, and 11. And the other angle side pair that we know, angle B. And let me undo that so you can still read that. Angle B is 50 degrees, and the side across from that is 10. And so because we're using A and B, we don't even need to use or worry about the fraction including C. And so if we substitute in what we know, we have the sine. Angle A is unknown, so that is X over little a, so the side across from that is 11, equal to the sine of angle B over side B. Well, angle B is 50, so the sine of 50 divided by side B, the side across from angle B, which is 10. So again, we have a proportion, and so in order to solve a proportion, we can cross multiply. So we'd have 10 times the sine of angle X equals 11 times the sine of 50 if we cross multiply the other way. So now we're trying to isolate the variable, and so we have this constant of 10 that is being multiplied. So we can divide both sides by 10, and so in doing so, multiplying by 10 and dividing by 10 cancel out, and so we have the sine of angle X equals 11 times the sine of 50 over 10. And so now we can use our calculator. Even though X is not by itself, we can use our calculator to evaluate the right side of our equation. And so if we type in 11 times the sine of 50 divided by 10, that is equivalent to, whoops, and I actually typed that in wrong. It's 11 times the sine of 50, and then dividing by 10. That is equivalent, and we're going to round out to 4 decimal places because this is not our final answer, 0.8426. And so on our note sheet here, we can write down that the sine of X was equivalent to 0.8426. And so again, anytime we are looking for the angle, we are going to use the inverse. And so to undo the sine function, we need to do the sine inverse to both sides. So sine and sine inverse cancel each other out. And we have X equals the sine inverse of 0.8426. And so again, we will need to use our calculator to evaluate that. And so using our calculator, we can evaluate the sine inverse of 0.8426, and that value of our angle to the nearest tenth is 57.4 degrees. So writing that down in our notes, our angle turns out to be 57.4 degrees. Thank you for listening.